are signs he secretly hates you. Never ignore this. There's a kind of death that doesn't make the news, a death that doesn't involve the body, but the soul. It happens quietly behind closed doors in relationships that were meant to empower him, but instead dismantle him. One sigh, one criticism, one withheld glance at a time. At first, it's invisible. A man who was once confident, creative, and full of fire slowly begins to dim. He starts second-guessing his words, apologizing for existing, and confusing peace with pleasing. This isn't heartbreak. It's corrosion, the slow emotional decay that begins when love turns into psychological reprogramming. 1. The slow erosion, when admiration turns into evaluation. Every relationship begins with admiration. In the beginning, she looks at him like he's the answer to every unspoken prayer. Her eyes reflect his potential. Her voice amplifies his confidence. He walks taller, speaks bolder, and dreams bigger, not because she built him, but because she believed in him. But slowly, admiration turns into assessment. The look of awe becomes a look of calculation. She starts to measure him instead of witnessing him. You used to be so driven, maybe you're just not trying hard enough. What sounds like casual critique becomes emotional calibration. He's no longer loved for who he is, but for how well he performs the image she once admired. That's the first sign of emotional disconnection. When a woman stops seeing your essence and starts grading your effort. 2. Biological reprogramming. The chemistry of contempt. Men often underestimate how biological emotional rejection feels. When a woman's tone shifts from warmth to indifference, his nervous system reacts as if his survival is at stake. Cortisol spikes. When she shows contempt or disappointment, dopamine drops. When affection turns to silence, testosterone declines. When approval becomes conditional. This isn't weakness, it's wiring. For thousands of years, men were built to protect the tribe and earn belonging. When the person closest to him turns cold, his body interprets it as exile. Over time, those tiny moments, the sighs, the eye rolls, the subtle withdrawal, become a silent education. He learns to chase reassurance instead of pursuing purpose. He learns to shrink to keep the peace instead of speaking to protect his truth. That's how emotional manipulation takes root, not through aggression, but through conditioning. 3. The mirror effect, when her perception becomes his identity. The tragedy is that he starts agreeing with her. He stops saying, "She treats me like I'm not enough," and starts thinking, "Maybe I'm not enough." This is the moment the manipulation becomes self-sustaining. He doesn't need her to tear him down anymore. He'll do it himself. Every look of disappointment becomes a data point. Every unacknowledged success becomes proof of failure. He begins calibrating his self-worth to her emotional temperature. If she's warm, he feels valuable. If she's cold, he feels defective. That's not love. That's emotional dependency masquerading as connection. 4. The external echo, when the world joins in. The erosion doesn't always happen privately. Sometimes it's amplified by her social circle, subtle comparisons that reshape her perception of him. My friend's husband just started a business. Sarah's boyfriend takes her to Italy every year. She doesn't mean to be cruel, but every comment plants a seed. Could I do better? That question poisons everything. Admiration turns into quiet disappointment, and respect into subtle judgment. Meanwhile, men rarely have this social reinforcement. They don't gather to compare wives or trade up. When men love, they commit. When women are influenced by social comparison, they reassess. And in that imbalance, where she's being swayed and he's being loyal, he begins to lose. 5. The trap of performance. When love becomes a test, the relationship becomes theater. He's no longer a partner but a performer, auditioning for approval in a play he didn't agree to join. Seeking cues. He watches her face for cues before he speaks. He edits his truth to keep her comfortable. He starts mistaking tolerance for love. Conditioning, not domination. She doesn't have to demand obedience. She simply rewards compliance. He learns subconsciously that his peace depends on her mood. Every smile feels like oxygen. Every sigh feels like death. That's the moment he disappears. Not because she broke him, but because he betrayed himself trying to keep her. 6. Awareness, the beginning of liberation. Freedom begins the moment he stops asking, "What's wrong with me?" and starts asking, "What's happening to me?" He begins to see the pattern. He realizes he's not weak. He's been reprogrammed. He starts noticing how differently he feels when she's not around. Does her presence build him or blur him? Does she speak life into him or drain it out of him, one sigh at a time? Those aren't small observations. They're diagnostics. When the mirror you're standing in front of constantly distorts your reflection, it's not a relationship. It's psychological conditioning. 7. Reclaiming power, from performance to purpose. The antidote isn't anger, it's clarity. You don't rebuild your power by dominating anyone. You rebuild it by remembering who you were before you forgot. The man who dreamed without permission. The man who didn't need applause to feel powerful. The man who led with conviction, not desperation. He stops negotiating his value. He stops apologizing for existing. He stops explaining his worth to people who benefit from pretending they can't see it. That's not arrogance, it's sovereignty. 8. The true test, rising without revenge. When he reclaims his self-worth, the world shifts. Some people drift away, those who only loved the version of him that needed their validation. Others draw closer, those who respect his truth. He realizes that power doesn't come from control, but from clarity. Confidence isn't noise. It's certainty, the quiet energy of a man who knows who he is, even when no one else believes it yet. And when he reaches that point, he understands the final truth. He was never destroyed by her. He was destroyed by his agreement with her perception. The real battle was never between man and woman, but between a man and the version of himself that forgot his worth. 9. the rebirth of masculinity. True masculinity is not domination, it's direction. It's not about controlling anyone, but about leading yourself. When a man rebuilds his identity from the inside out, from purpose, not performance, he becomes untouchable. No sigh, silence, or disapproval can rewrite him anymore, because he no longer lives for the reflection in someone else's eyes. That's when he finally becomes free. Not bitter, but balanced. Not lonely, but liberated. And that decision, made quietly, fearlessly, unapologetically, becomes the moment the world recalibrates around him. Conclusion: the power of remembering who you are. Every man must one day stand at a crossroads, between comfort and truth, between silence and self-respect. Both paths cost something, but only one gives him back himself. When he stops performing for love and starts living from purpose, he realizes the truth. He was never unworthy. He was only unseen. And when a man remembers his worth, the entire world adjusts to his new reflection. Key takeaway: if her love makes you smaller, it isn't love, it's programming. If her presence confuses your confidence, it's not chemistry, it's conditioning. The cure isn't to fix her, it's to find you again. Because the man who reclaims his reflection can never be erased again.